Just another beautiful day in Colorado. So, this is going to be our first backpacking trip of the year. We decided to bring our dogs along for the first time. I've never actually brought them along with me on a backpacking trip. To start the season off, we're going to be on a really simple trail. It just goes down a waterfall one time, and then it's just a flat path through a bunch of fields with cows until you get to a forested area, and we'll be camping in the forested area and fly fishing up and downstream. As far as the fishing, there's pretty much just brown trout in this creek, and then the occasional stalker rainbow and the occasional stalker brookie that ends up spilling out of this reservoir right here down into the creek. I should also mention that the footage right now that you're seeing is actually from July 4th. So there aren't too many campers along this trail, even on July 4th, which makes it a great place to camp. There's something special about a trail that feels both forgotten and full of history. One that winds its way through rugged canyon walls, crosses cold streams, and leaves you wondering who walked there 100 years before. This trail is one of those paths. It doesn't have the same fame as nearby Colorado 14ers or national parks, but for those who make the trek, it offers a raw, beautiful slice of the state's backcountry and a glimpse into its past. To be clear, this trail isn't a manicured tourist trail. This section is steep, rocky, and more often than not requires you to wade through the creek itself. You'll slip on rocks, scramble over deadfall, and find yourself utterly alone for long stretches. That's part of the appeal. Unlike some of the more popular trails in Colorado, this one hasn't been tamed. It's rough around the edges, just like the land it cuts through. The land here isn't just scenic, it's historic. Long before settlers moved into the Arkansas River Valley, the Ute people traveled through these canyons seasonally, hunting, gathering, and living off the land. Archaeological sites across Fremont County, including parts of the drainage, show evidence of human activity that goes back over 700 years. Later in the 1800s, this trail corridor played a surprising role in Colorado's early development. A stagecoach route once ran through here. Yes, a full-on stagecoach, back when folks rode in wooden carriages to deliver mail, freight, and people across the frontier. One of the key stops along the way was a place called Glendale House. Built in 1868 as a supply station, cowboys, trappers, and travelers would rest here on their way between Old Colorado City and Canyon City. It's wild to think about riding horses or hauling wagons through this canyon today. It's hard enough to do it on foot. The scenery speaks for itself. The canyon walls rise steeply on both sides with jagged rock formations, dry pine forests, and the occasional meadow full of wildflowers. You'll hear the rush of water before you see it, and in summer that stream can be both a blessing and a challenge. It's the main water source and the trail in some spots. On a hot day, it's hard to beat wading through it with your boots off and your pack on your shoulders. Wildlife is everywhere. You might spot bighorn sheep on cliffs, golden eagles circling overhead, or the occasional bear print in the mud. This is also one of Colorado's lesser-known birding hotspots, especially in spring and early summer when the creek supports an explosion of life. If you're planning to hike the trail, know what you're getting into. This isn't a beginner hike. You'll need a good sense of direction, the ability to navigate without cell service, and a willingness to get your feet wet. A GPS or offline map is strongly recommended, since the trail can get faint in places or be blocked by fallen trees. Also, this land is part of state wildlife area. You need either a Colorado hunting or fishing license or a specific wildlife area pass just to legally be on the trail. It's a rule that surprises some hikers, but it helps fund the protection of the area's fragile ecosystem. If you follow the creek long enough, you'll eventually make your way down into the wide valleys near Canyon City. The transition from rugged canyon to open space is stunning. You leave the cliffs behind and step into rolling grasslands and distant views of the Royal Gorge and the wet mountains. It's an underrated ending to an underrated trail. So this is the first and the last water crossing. We won't be going any further than necessary for fishing, which is only about a couple miles down this trail. And then after that we're going to set up camp, but first I gotta get all my bags across this river, drop them off, then go grab the dogs and the other bags. If you're the kind of person who believes less is more, you'd probably fall in love with tenkara fly fishing. And if you're looking for the perfect place to practice it, this trail is great. Rugged, remote, and tucked deep into the canyon country, this little stream is tailor-made for tenkara. Small water, spooky trout, and tight casting lines. Add in the fact that you're hiking through some of Colorado's most underrated backcountry, and you've got a fly fishing experience that's as peaceful as it is rewarding. So, what is tenkara anyway? If you're new to tenkara, it's a traditional Japanese method of fly fishing that strips things down to the essentials. No reel, just a long telescoping rod, a line, and a fly. That's it. It was originally developed for catching trout in high mountain streams, and it thrives in tight quarters where Western fly fishing rods get snagged every other cast. That makes it the perfect match for places like this trail, where overhanging branches, steep canyon walls, and narrow channels make casting a challenge. This creek is far from a stocked pond. It's wild water in every sense, cold, clean, and winding through rock and pine like it's been left alone for centuries, because in many ways it has. The stream twists and drops through, tumbling over boulders and slipping under cut banks. In some places it's barely wider than a hallway. In others it opens up just enough to give you a perfect pocket of still water to drift a fly. Most of the fish here are small. Don't come expecting monster browns or trophy rainbows. What you get instead are native brookies, a few wild rainbows, and maybe even the occasional brown that's snuck in from downstream. But what they lack in size, they make up for in beauty and fight. These fish are wild, wary, and deeply colored, like little living gemstones flickering in the current. So why does tenkara work here so well? You could fish this creek with a standard 9-foot fly rod and a reel, sure, but you'll quickly find yourself fighting the landscape as much as the fish. The overhanging willows, steep canyon walls, and narrow casting lanes make things tricky for traditional fly gear. That's where tenkara shines. A 10 to 12 foot tenkara rod gives you the reach to dab your fly into tiny eddies and long seams with perfect control. No back casts needed. You can high stick in the current, keeping the line off the water and getting an almost drag-free drift. And because there's no reel, your connection to the fish is direct. Every twitch, bump, or hit feels electric in your hand. So I just got done setting up our camp, so I'm going to be staying in this hammock with a tarp and an underquilt. And I keep all my gear underneath the tarp. And then I brought my 4-season backpacking tent out, which this is kind of big. But with 2 dogs and a person inside, it shouldn't be really that bad. There's that end compartment back there where you can put a stove for the middle of winter and have a stove running inside your tent. Our fire pit is pretty cool too. Somebody decided to drag this piece of roofing over here so that we can keep all of our firewood dry. And I'm just going to start a fire right now. That way, whenever I come back from fishing, I don't have to worry about starting a fire and looking for wood in the dark. I like using these fat wood sticks and a torch lighter to light the fat wood. I have also started using a chainsaw instead of a tactical shovel to chop all my wood up because I can just get entire logs with a chainsaw. I think this might be fool's gold, but just the silver variety, so full silver. And my mom ended up falling into the river, so I'm going to be trying to dry out her shirt over this campfire, which is already pretty dry. Mr. Benny seems to really like the fire, which, if you're standing right here, it feels like you're actually going to catch on fire. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw some kebabs on the grill right now. That way I can eat before I go fishing, and I just don't really need to worry about food after I'm fishing and it's dark. Cooking over the hot coals is also a lot better than actually trying to cook over open flames, which I'm going to start doing that from now on too. Tenkara rods are also extremely lightweight, even more lightweight than a standard fly fishing rod with a reel. So when you're hiking miles down a Rocky Canyon trail, every ounce counts. My entire Tenkara setup, rod, line, flies, tippet, fits in one small pouch in my backpack. No vests, no waders, no gear explosion, just you, a rod, and the water. So a few tips for the trail: always bring wet wading gear. The creek isn't deep, but you'll need to cross it, probably several times. Neoprene socks and sandals or grippy trail shoes work better than chunky waders here. And also watch the water temperature. In midsummer, sections of the creek can get warm in the lower canyon, so handle fish carefully and fish early if you can. And always make sure you use barbless hooks. It makes releasing the little guys quicker and easier. Know the access rules. The creek runs through a state wildlife area, so you'll need a CPW pass or a valid hunting/fishing license, even just to walk the trail. There's a kind of weird freedom in stepping off the trail and realizing you don't need shoes, like at all. Your feet hit the real earth, and for the first time all day you feel it. The grain of sand, the cool trickle of water, the smooth, wet rock. And if you've got a tenkara rod in your hand while this is happening, well, welcome to one of the simplest and most satisfying outdoor experiences you'll ever have. I didn't set out to become a barefoot hiker or a minimalist angler. Like most people, I bought all the gear first: boots, reels, vests, backup reels, extra flies, packs to carry it all. But somewhere along the line, probably after dragging 30 pounds of stuff up a hill just to catch a 6-inch trout, I started asking, what do I actually need out here? Turns out, not much. Let's be clear, barefoot hiking isn't for everyone, and it's definitely not for every trail, but along routes like this, where the trail winds down into the canyon and runs parallel to the stream, going barefoot feels less like a stunt and more like a return. The first catch of the trip, about a 6-inch brown trout with a Duracell bomb, which is a type of Euro nymph. It's also really important to make sure that whenever you're approaching a river while fly fishing, that you're not stomping the ground very hard, because the fish can actually sense the vibrations from you approaching the water. At first, yeah, you're tiptoeing around like a toddler on gravel, but after a mile or two, your feet wake up. You start noticing textures and temperatures you never paid attention to before. Pine needles, warm sun-baked stone, cold stream bottom. It's like the whole landscape shifts from background scenery to tactile experience. Every step becomes part of the journey, not just something you do to get from point A to point B. Now add tenkara to that, one long simple rod, no reel, no drag systems or leaders the length of a minivan, just a flick of the wrist and a single fly dancing through a pocket of water, so clear you can see every ripple. Tenkara and barefoot hiking were made for each other both. built around the idea that you don't need more stuff to connect more deeply. You don't need to cast far because the water's right there. You don't need to chase trophy fish because the 6-inch brookie you just landed on a barbless kabari is a masterpiece. You don't need to outmatch the river, you just meet it on its terms. Fishing barefoot forces you to slow down. You're not charging through the woods or bushwhacking to the next honey hole. You're carefully moving, feeling the earth, reading the water, and watching for signs of fish like an animal instead of a fisherman. Sure, there are risks. You can stub a toe, step on a thistle, bash your heel on a rock you didn't see coming. But you learn quickly, your eyes start scanning the trail more attentively, you stop thrashing through branches and start moving like you're a part of the ecosystem, not just blasting through it. That mindset carries over to your fishing too. You cast more quietly, wade more slowly, and observe more than you disturb. Alright, so it's morning finally, and I got a fire started, so I'm gonna cook some breakfast steak first, and then I'm gonna go back out and fish for a little bit longer. Let's be honest, most backpacking meals aren't exactly gourmet. When your pack is heavy and your legs are shot, you're usually just happy to scarf down a sad packet of freeze-dried mush and call it dinner. But every once in a while you plan ahead, you pack a little heavier, you hike a little slower, and you make space in your gear and your soul for something truly glorious, a thick-cut steak cooked over an open fire, hanging from a tripod grill. It's a scene out of a cowboy movie. Pair that with some coffee you made by just dumping coffee grounds into a cup with some boiling water and sugar, and you have a backpacking breakfast. I'm just gonna get some more firewood to keep the fire going. Brown trout are native to Europe, but they've made themselves at home in creeks all over the U.S., especially in places that are too hot, too shallow, or too sneaky for other trout to thrive. They're survivors. They'll eat anything, midges, beetles, other fish, and they don't mind tight spaces. That means creeks with a mix of fast runs, undercut banks, and log jams are prime brown trout territory, and that also means they're perfect for tenkara. So this is the first trout of the second day that I've caught. He's only about maybe 3 inches, but still pretty decent for a creek like this. I caught him with the same Duracell bomb like I did yesterday. So I'm going to continue hiking down this trail towards the parking lot and see if I can catch any more fish before we have to wrap up and leave. The key is stealth. Browns spook easily, especially in clear water. You've got to move like you're part of the landscape. Keep low, stay in the shadows, wear drab colors, and maybe even talk to the creek like it's a skittish dog. With tenkara you can cast from way upstream and let the fly drift down with barely a splash. Half the time you'll see the take before you even feel it. There's a kind of peace that comes with tenkara fishing for browns. You're not slinging 40 feet of line, you're not double hauling across a river. You're just dancing a fly through the water a few feet at a time, reading the current and staying present. No reels screaming, no big fish photos, just you, the creek, and a handful of sharp, clever fish that make you earn every hook set. Most hikers enter the trailhead through a nearby reservoir. Over 100 years ago, in 1899, this reservoir was part of a wild hydroelectric project meant to power the booming gold camps of Cripple Creek and Vector. Workers blasted granite, built a pipeline stretching miles along the cliffs, and dropped water 1,200 feet down to turn turbines at the plant. When it began generating power in 1901, it lit up Victor's streets like a 3-day neon party. Even though the plant is long abandoned, its spirit lingers in the crumbling dam remains and the reservoir's still mirror. The power cables are gone, but the canyon still hums with that old hum of ambition. The nearby waters and hills also hide traces of another era, iron mining. According to the USGS records, somewhere high in Park County divides off the watershed, there existed an iron mine. Simple but telling, it's likely fed small scale local needs, maybe for smelter flux or small machinery parts. Though scant details remain, no bustling town or grand operation, just knowing miners once dug those slopes for ore gives the canyon a new weight. While the creek itself wasn't a silver camp, it falls within the broader region of Colorado's silver boom era that started in the late 1800s. Nearby Clear Creek Canyon, for instance, supported dozens of mining towns, Beaver City, Vicksburg, and others, where prospectors followed glinting seams of ore discovered along the creek beds around 1867. Those booming camps left cabins, stamp mills, and tailings piles that still show on the back roads today. While the creek lies a bit south of that belt, the same economic and cultural forces, greed, hope, bust, and decline, brush through this region. Walking along the creek trail today, you're mostly aware of nature, the turns of the stream, the scent of ponderosa, and the sway of goldenrod, but pause now and again to pick up weathered nails or rusted iron shards. Trail faded logging or mining spurs may appear off shooting towards the rocky slopes. Even the reservoir and dam hint at a once greater industrial ambition. Well, I had a really good time on this backpacking trip, and we're almost at the car now, so I guess I'll see you guys next time.